Welcome to the Lifestyle Practice Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Derek Williams. Really excited for today's episode. I've got Dr. Raheel Hayter. How you doing, Raheel?
I'm doing well. You don't have to call me doctor. I'm not much for titles, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Well, I'm excited. I've been working with Raheel recently. We got to know each other. I don't know, what has it been, like a year?
The first time I think we ever talked or met, you did like a Zoom TLP thing for my dental school.
Oh,
And then I think we met in person in Phoenix.
yeah, yeah. Okay, I forgot about the Zoom. I forgot what dental school were you at?
UNLV, Las Vegas.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's cool. Totally. Yeah, I totally forgot about that. Anyway, so you just recently purchased a practice, so our episode is going to kind of talk into your goals and background and getting into ownership. It's one of the things that I really enjoy talking about and airing out on the podcast. I guess starting out, give us a little bit of an intro on yourself, growing up, family, deciding on dentistry, kind of all that point kind of leading up to dental school.
Yeah. There's this concept of whenever you're doing something, thinking about keeping the end in mind. And so when I was growing up, and I grew up kind of like the suburbs of Dallas, Texas, Mesquite, Raleigh area. And growing up, I kind of didn't know what I wanted to do, but you grow up in a Asian immigrant family, it's go be a doctor, right? And growing up, my family, immediate and extended, I always saw a lot of money and financial issues. Whether we lived in an apartment or a house, no matter how little or how much they made, there were years they did well, there were years they didn't do well at all. And there were always like struggles about money, house foreclosures with extended family, all kinds of other stuff. But the only ever advice I got from family was be a doctor. That'll solve everything, right? So when I hit probably college, I started college. I was already fairly money conscious. I knew nothing about it, but just seeing money struggles made me very money conscious. And then I think I was probably like 20 years old in college, and I was just really annoyed and frustrated because I felt like even though I'm pursuing this doctor route, I feel like I'm going down the same rabbit hole that my family did, and nothing's changing. So I just started Googling.
Let me interrupt you. So what
Yeah.
what happened at that point that made you feel like you were going down the same path? Because it sounds like you were much more aware and you were
Yeah.
able to kind of pick a different trajectory. So what was happening that made you feel like you were going down the same path?
Yeah. Great question. Although I was working hard toward this career, I knew nothing about money. I had never been educated about it. So I just ran up my credit card, didn't even think about how much I was spending or how much I was making at my job. I got a car, didn't know a thing about a car payment. And then I was looking at how much school is going to be a doctor. And I was like, I can't afford this. So I was all these things at once. I was like, this doesn't make sense to me. So I just started Googling, how does a credit card work? How does a car payment work? And those were the basics. And then as I started learning the basics, I randomly stumbled upon this concept of financial freedom and this FIRE movement. And at 20, I learned about that and I was like, this is what I'm striving for. This is my purpose in life, to move toward this goal, not for materialistic things or fancy stuff, but being able to have that freedom and optionality where I don't have to have those money worries that most of my family did. So at that point, I was shadowing, I was deciding what route I wanted to go. And I decided on dental school through shadowing dentists and still having that mindset of I'm going to be a doctor. And also just being like, I don't have to be in school forever, in all honesty. It's like I'm pursuing financial freedom. I'm not really pursuing being a doctor for the next 40 years of my life. So that's kind of how I ended up going to dental school.
Gotcha. So for anyone listening that doesn't know what FIRE stands for, it's financial independence, retire early. So I want to talk a little bit more about this because this isn't really something that we've talked about much on the podcast at all. So Tell me a little bit more about like when you discovered fire. What were some of the stories that you heard? What was the most motivating aspect of it versus maybe a more traditional path, especially when it sounds like you kind of were raised to accept a more traditional path, although maybe a little bit more responsible or higher income. So what was it about fire that like really stuck out that was like, oh, okay, this is different. I like what I can see here.
Yeah, part of it was probably a lot of frustration, just feeling when I was younger I couldn't do the things I wanted, or watching my parents not be able to, or extended family, they couldn't do the things they wanted because money was an issue. And money was an issue because of financial literacy. They couldn't go on a vacation or buy a certain thing. Or even if they did buy those things, now it's like we're stressing and arguing about paying this bill or that bill. So for me, I think a lot of it is just freedom. I really, really hate being told what to do or not being able to do what I want when I want. So freedom and optionality to me just is so, so, so important to me. And that just made me go so into pursuing fire.
Yeah. It's always interesting to me that what we notice as kids in our family, a lot of times we see some of the benefits, but we also notice like a lot what's missing. And we kind of think, okay, this was missing. This is what I want to do differently.
Yeah,
Last night I had a few of my siblings over. We're sitting in the hot tub and talking about like almost like psychoanalyzing our parents and our childhood and stuff. And it made me think like, what are my kids gonna say about growing up in
right.
my house when they're older and stuff? So it's interesting that what we grow up in and how we process it and everything kind of in some ways creates our path forward and what we end up seeking out. And sometimes it seems like a lot of the time it ends up being, like I said, kind of what we're missing, what we don't see as much. Would you agree with that, or do you see it any differently?
I agree with this somewhat. I think, you learn all the things that you want to do the exact same, but you also learn all the things that you want to do the complete opposite.
Yeah. What's a couple examples of things that you were like, oh, I want to do that the same? Because we know what you wanted to
Oh,
do different.
with my family,
Yeah.
gosh, their ability to stick together, support each other. My family's been there for literally everything, every down moment, super down moment, every up moment. They've been there for it all. Even with me moving to Vegas, moving back here, like they've been 100% supportive. I would not be anywhere without them. So that is something that the family bond is very strong. So that's something that I would do my best to keep the same.
Yeah. Very cool. That's great. I think if you could pick any one thing to have go right growing up, that would probably be right at the top.
Yeah.
Okay, so you discover fire, you have kind of this different mentality and aspect. So let's talk about dental school. What was your dental school experience like? How much of it was just focused on clinical versus you keeping this fire aspect in your mind, thinking ahead, like, okay, this is what I'm going to do year one, year two, this is my path?
Yeah. Great question. So since probably college, I was a terrible student, B's, C's. So I barely get into dental school. And I know fire is number one priority. So I'm already day one going, I'm not specializing. It's GP. And I found a few podcasts or just starting to read it online. And it's just like, you want to be successful as a dentist or earn a great income, which would be helpful for fire, be great clinically, own a business. That's about it. So day one, I was trying to learn as much as I could about the business side of dentistry, listen to podcasts, going to CE courses, and clinically, it was just spend as much time in clinic as possible. D1, D2, you're mostly in class and lab, but if I was not in class or lab or we finished early, I was in clinic just all the time, just soaking up as much knowledge as I can. Thankfully, our school had no endo or OS specialties. So all the molar endo, all the extractions, all the impacted wisdom teeth came to us. So by the time I graduated, I had felt comfortable with molar endo. I had felt comfortable with taking out any tooth. impacted wisdom teeth. And I felt like that was a great starting point to get into practice and earn a great income.
Very cool. Can you highlight, because I'm sure that not everyone, even though those opportunities were there for you, I'm sure that a lot of your classmates didn't get the same experience that you did. What did you do to capitalize on the opportunities that were in front of you in dental school, and whether it's get more reps or get more out of each rep that you had?
Yeah, that's a great question. It was definitely a point of tension among some classmates because I had done more than a lot of others and it felt a little unfair. But in reality, no matter what school you go to, obviously some schools you'll get a better experience in general, but you just have to spend every moment you can in clinic. There's this urge to go home and study or go to the library and study for the next exam. But you can study between 5 and 12 at night in reality. Clinic is only open 8 to 5. So if you have a free moment between 8 and 5, go be in clinic. Go learn to do something new. And as you keep doing that day in, day out, if you do it as early as possible, that's more chances for faculty to see you, for them to trust you more, for them to let you go do more procedures, for you to really push your limits and get bailed out by someone else. No matter what school you're at, you really put in the time and effort every single day, and 8 to 5, volunteer during breaks, you will get a ton of experience.
Love it. If you are a student listening to this, rewind a minute ago and write down everything that Raheel just said. List it all out and focus on doing that, especially if you want to be a GP that can hit the ground running as fast as possible. Because I find that the dentists that graduate and have that type of experience, their success is so much accelerated. So, very cool. Okay, so talk more about, that was kind of your clinical approach and getting the most out of everything. Now talk about, like, okay, D1, 2, 3, 4. Where were you at as far as thinking about ownership versus, oh, I'm going to associate for X amount of years, or, I'm going to be willing to go here to make this much? Like, how did you think through all of that throughout your time during dental school?
Yeah, I pretty much for most of dental school was of the mindset of it was ownership as soon as possible, just for increase my income, pay off my student loans, pursue fire all at the same time. But once I graduated, I kind of fell off that mindset. I think it was mostly just burnout and just being tired from the work I was putting in school. So I took a back seat, and probably for the first 6 months of my associateship, I was like, I'm just going to associate and be the best producing associate I can be and funnel all my paychecks toward investing. But I got probably 6 to 8 months in, and although I was investing pretty much every paycheck I had and I was accelerating progress, I was just doing the math and I was like, to pay off my student loans and pursue fire in the timeline that I want, associating is just not going to do it. And it's just not the smart way to do it. And you commented on one of my posts just saying, like, if you're this driven and motivated to fire, why not ownership? So that kind of lit the fire back under me again. And I was like, if I want it this bad, I should be willing to go through anything to get it.
Yeah, that's interesting. My last year of dental school, and then it carried over into my first year as a dentist, I took an ortho course in LA. And one of the dentists that was in that course too was Hunter Smith, who is one of the co-founders of GPS Dental. They have, I think, over 100 practices now at this point. But I got to know Hunter a little bit. I got to know him through Dental Town and talked. He was like a really kind of mentor figure for me. And when we were at this course, we went out to lunch one day, and Steve was there too, Vandegraff. And Steve was joking and telling Hunter how I had entered a weight loss contest in Omaha in our last year of dental school, and I purposely was gaining weight for the weight loss contest because I thought I could win. I ran the numbers, compared it to like Biggest Loser percentage wise and stuff. Like I had this plan and I won for our gym, but I was going for the grand prize, which was 5,000, and I didn't get it. But I lost 58 and a half pounds in 12 weeks.
Wow.
And so Steve was telling this to Hunter. It was really interesting because Hunter's response was, if you're willing to do that, you're going to be just fine as a dentist. And I had kind of the same experience when I was looking at you, when I was looking at like, oh my gosh, he's doing all of these things. Like he is pushing the pedal to the metal. And it kind of made me think like, oh, if this is your mentality, dude, you need to get into ownership because that's where the opportunities are. If you're capitalizing on all these opportunities that are there right in front of you now as an associate, when you're an owner, you're going to capitalize in the same way that you are now, but your return on those efforts is going to be significantly higher. And that's what I felt like I was saying to you in that moment. And I was actually really impressed how you responded, how you were just like, oh, wow, okay, that's a really good point. I'm going to reconsider my game plan.
Yeah, if there's one thing I always try to do is take advice from everyone, you know. You constantly have to be reevaluating, taking new information and reevaluating your decisions. And at that point, I decided that I am wrong and I need to get back into this ownership mindset. So the next 3, 4 months, I was hitting up every broker, rep, older dentist that I could. I resent mailers because I sent mailers in D4. So I resent mailers and I found a practice probably 3 months after that exchange we had, put an offer in, and maybe a couple weeks later it got accepted.
I'm so impressed. I think when you look at the people out there in business and kind of try and identify what are some common characteristics that you see with the above average performers, I think what you just said cannot be overstated. You have to have this ability to somehow, I don't know, it's a balance. Okay, so I'll just kind of talk out loud. On one hand, you want to have a good amount of confidence where you're looking at your path forward and you're staying committed and continuing to move towards that. But on the other hand, the other side of the coin is you're always taking feedback from other people and you're thinking critically about your path and you're continuing to think, is there a better way? Oh, there probably is a better way. I'm committed to this because I think this is the best path at this point, but I'm still going to be so open-minded to taking other people's thoughts into consideration. And I think that you just don't see that super often. So I want to double click on that a little bit and ask you, how did you learn that, or how did you develop that ability to be so driven and hard-nosed towards where you're going, but also at the same time very open to others' feedback?
I don't know if there was one specific moment in life that caused me to be that way, but it's just growing up, you see mistakes that you make or you see mistakes that others make. And it's like you can keep making the same mistake over and over again and be insane, or you can learn, improve, and do your best to not make it again. And it's also this concept of like having strong opinions weakly held. You know, you have this strong drive toward doing something, but you also are willing to be humble and understand that there are other people out there who are smarter than you, who have advice, and just be willing to take it and be like, okay, I'm wrong there. Let me change that.
Yeah, that's very cool. I think it can be somewhat challenging to keep that mindset over time. As you continue to get wins and you progress, you may start to feel more confidence in yourself, which is good. But I think it's very healthy to always keep this. I mean, for lack of better words, I would say humility. There's just
Yeah.
this strong, and Jim Collins talks about it in Good to Great. Like the best type of leader has a large amount of strong will and humility. And that is also kind of what I'm picking up on and what you're talking about, where you've shown a lot of strong will, dedication moving forward, but also humility. So it's really, I love seeing, some of the same characteristics pop up in different ways. So it's really kind of cool to hear that and to pick up on it in this conversation as well here.
Yeah. It's all about balancing the two. It's very easy for the line to get blurry, but if you can just balance the two and constantly have that inner drive and willingness to succeed no matter what, you can do anything.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on and talk about you identified, you found a practice, LOI in place. I mean, talk about just the period in between finding the practice and then closing.
Yeah, so it was a very drawn out process, probably 3 months of back and forth. And it was mostly just due to the seller having some health issues and, in all honesty, just being very passive, just taking things slow, not really interested in, like, I need to get this done ASAP.
Yeah.
In week one of ownership, it's evident that it was a very passive approach to running the business, too. So that due diligence was just evaluating the numbers, making sure that this is the right practice to buy, which it was. Going through every podcast through dental school, I could see so many things where I'm like, we could turn this up. The most important things to me, being in Dallas, like any big city, is saturation is pretty tough with 4 dentists on every corner. And the last thing I wanted was to go somewhere where I got to compete with a million dentists. And so I was looking for an office with not a lot of competition. So this office was one office, small town, an hour outside of Dallas, no other dentist in town. And I think in 3 and 5 miles, she was the only dentist, and there's probably 10, 20,000 people. And, you get drawn in people from outside of town. Rent was pretty good. Payroll was pretty good. So I was like, okay, the fixed costs are fairly good. There's not a lot of competition. And she's taken a very passive approach to running the business. So if I can just tie in some things, we could really turn this place up.
There's a lot of people listening that would say, oh, okay, that's how I can look at things. But how did you learn to identify those things? Was it mostly through listening to podcasts? Was it looking at actual practices and running the numbers yourself to learn to identify those things? What are the steps that you took to be able to recognize in that moment with that practice that, okay, this is a good opportunity?
Yeah, great question. Number one was listening to the business dental podcast. Two was just reading online the business Facebook groups. And three was evaluating practices. And you see the struggles people have online with their practices. Listen to the podcast and you see the similarities. You go to a business course and they talk about saturation and competition with other dentists. And then you go evaluate practices or you see people struggling in their offices and it's like, well, yeah, I see why you're struggling. You decided to open with 3 dentists across the street and the saturation is like one dentist for 2,000 people,
Yeah.
right? Or it's like, I'm not profitable. Well, yeah, we talk about fixed costs being an issue and you're in a pretty good suburb and your rent is 6-7 grand a month. And then, a nicer area comes with higher payroll. So kind of seeing those things, listen to about those things on the podcast, and then seeing offices for sale, and every single office that is for sale is like subpar collections, not very profitable because their rent is high, their payroll is high, and there's a lot of dentists around. So it's hard to get patients in the door and produce.
Yeah. So it's kind of a combination of a lot of different things. And I think it's great to hear because I think a lot of times when people are searching for a path, they think that there's some kind of magic bullet. There's like, oh, I took this one course and it laid everything out for me and taught me exactly what I needed to know. Your answer is more, well, I got some here and then there was over here. And then I was just like listening to a lot of dentists and seeing what are they facing.
Yeah,
And
it's a culmination of it all, and you put it all together, and no practice is going to be perfect. I looked at a million, but at one point, you will find one. You have to say no to a million before the one is like, there are more positives going in favor of this than negatives.
yeah, which is interesting because you said it was like a 3-month period, right? And being in Dallas, in my head, I'm like, okay, that's competitive. Like you might have to look for a year and a half before you find something. So hearing you say that you had to turn down a lot is initially like a little bit surprising to me.
There's a lot of practices for sale, and maybe it's just Dallas, but you go to 4 different brokers plus reps plus off market. Like there's practices for sale. They're 99% not great ones. This one, I got sort of lucky. A broker emailed me. I met the seller. She got multiple offers, and for whatever reason, she liked me best and she picked me. And that's
Yeah.
really how it happened.
That's great. I think one thing that I want to stress to people listening is that it's only because you said no and you had the experience looking at all those other practices that then when this came across your desk that you're able to just pounce. If you hadn't put in the work to analyze the other practices and be able to say no to them and know why you were saying no, this would have come to you and you would have been like, okay, yeah, I'll think about it. And by that point, your offer's not on the table and you just miss out.
Oh, I said no to plenty, and we could talk forever about all the ones I said no to, but that's a waste of time. But this one, this came up on an email from the broker, and I had an LOI in probably the same week, within a couple days.
Perfect. Yeah. Excellent. Well, that's great. That's super, super helpful. Okay. So let's talk, I guess, two questions next is just, okay, what did you do to actually prepare? And then the other question is, how did you decide that you wanted to work together with me in this acquisition? Because I think in some ways you've shown that you can do this on your own, that you're smart, capable, you can take information from all these different places. And when you evaluate the cost of coaching and working together, how did you make that decision to say, okay, this is something that I feel like is going to be worth it? So I guess those two questions. One is like coaching, and then we can just talk about what was it like preparing leading up to closing.
Yeah, we can talk about why I chose coaching and why I chose TLP and you specifically. There's plenty of dental coaches out there, great and not so great, but the truth, it all goes back to financial freedom and fire. If I am pursuing something so hard and I want something so hard, the fastest way to get there is learn from someone who's actually done it. Again, there's plenty of coaches out there, but I wanted to be coached and learn from someone who has done exactly what I want to do. It's point blank.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your second question about how I prepared, shameless plug, TLP Academy. But outside of that, honestly, I quit my job and then closing got delayed. So I had like 2 months off. And to be honest with you, I really just chilled because I knew day one that I would be hitting the ground running. I've already done all the work to prepare. I just need to focus on my personal, going to the gym, spending time with family, and just being in the right headspace and having like a healthy personal life because I know I'm going to become a workaholic when I start.
It's impressive that you recognize that because I feel like most workaholics would be keeping themselves very busy, planning, finding other jobs to work on. So it's like you, again, very good example of you having a very balanced perspective and recognizing, okay, well, I'm like this. So since I'm kind of over on this side of the spectrum, I'm going to play it over here for a little bit.
Yeah, because I've done the workaholic thing before and it doesn't work out too well. So I knew that I need to take my foot at least a little bit off the gas before I start.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you thought through, some different things like, okay, what are the low hanging fruit options in the practice? How aggressive do I want to be from day one? Meeting staff, like all of those kind of like pre closing thoughts that come up.
Yeah, so I was talking to you, and the big things were change nothing and just learn and see how things are run. And then we slowly start picking off the low hanging fruit. So that's essentially what I did. I met the staff, and the biggest worry for them was, are you bringing your own team? Are you firing all of us? So I was very upfront. I was like, I want everyone to stay. I'm changing nothing. I want you guys to do exactly what you're doing, and I'm just here to learn from you guys. Yeah, little things will change here and there, but everything is in an effort to improve everyone's work lives and improve the business. But everyone's jobs are safe. And that's the approach I told them. And that's the approach that I've taken week one. But they've very quickly learned that there will be changes and they will hopefully be positive changes because they've seen how previous ownership was with things and they know it can be better.
Yeah. You talked earlier and said you realized that the owner took more of a lax approach to leadership and owning the business and everything. What are some things that you saw beforehand that made you realize that? And then what have you realized now being in the practice for a week as the owner?
Yes. So before I had actually been in, just off numbers and speaking to her, it was mostly just I leave early. The team just kind of does what they want. I don't really bother them. I don't involve myself in the business or front desk stuff at all or anything about money. I just show up, do the dentistry, leave early, reschedule patients if I don't want to stay late, and I go home. And just off the numbers, a lot of her expenses were kind of out of line with the norms. Her supply budget was double, like 8 something%. Her labs were a little bit high too. I think it was around the same. Those were probably the two big ones that I saw. Oh, and her collections rate was like 92%. So those were before I got in. And now, week one that I'm in there, I kind of understand why those things are the way they are. She only ordered from Patterson, didn't care about costs of anything, $75 endo files. She did not care at all about documenting properly because insurance is going to deny when you don't document properly. Patients paying, plenty of discounts, plenty of they can pay later, plenty of not being firm about collecting money and when it should be collected. So plenty of patients with balances. I had my insurance coordinator in the first week has asked me so many questions, and every single thing is like, we will fix this later, because it's like we're taking things slow. And it's like, what do we do with all these EOBs we are keeping for patients? And I was like, why are we keeping EOBs for patients? And she's like, because patients want to see their EOBs. And I'm like, why do they want to see them? She's like, because they have a balance and we send them a bill, so they want to see why they have a balance. The problem is not let's keep the EOBs and where do we keep them. The problem is the patients have a balance, and why do they have a balance to begin with? So me just constantly asking questions, I'm seeing the source of the problem in this first week, and hopefully over the next few months it's like, okay, let's fix the source so then we don't have to worry about all this other stuff down the line.
Man, so many good things in this episode. I'm like I just get constantly like yes, yes, yes. I think that's what makes me feel good about like kind of talking through things beforehand, having this game plan of okay, let's go in, just be really curious, ask a lot of questions. Don't feel like you have to change and fix everything from day one, because a lot of times owners get in and feel like okay, this is an issue. How do we solve it? And that's how we are as dentists. Like find a problem, fix it. And so it's very tempting to do that. And I think the way that you approach that situation is just dead on for what we want the approach to be for the first week or two, to just be asking questions. It would have been so easy in that situation with the front desk employee to say, that's not right. We shouldn't be doing that. But you didn't do that. You just kept asking why. And eventually, that asking the why, being curious, leads you to information that then can help you make a really good decision. And by not jumping on it immediately and saying, we have to deal with this now, not saying that you never should do that. There are issues where it's like, okay, this is top of the priority list. Like, we just got to nip this in the bud. But I think taking that approach where you can just listen and say, okay, we're going to get to the bottom of this at some point. Right now, I'm making a note of it, essentially. Then you can come away, and after a week or two, you can have a very thoughtful and intentional approach saying, here are the top 3 things that make the most sense for us to tackle first. If every time something comes up as far as something you're concerned about and feel like you have to fix, your staff is going to see you being pulled in so many different directions, and it's going to feel like very messy leadership. So I just am like clapping my hands hearing how you approach things, because I know what the tendency is to want to just deal with every little thing as it comes up.
Yeah, I mean, I won't lie, there's been an insane urge and desire to change so much, but I've had to force myself to just be curious and just ask a ton of questions and just learn how they do things and get to the bottom of everything. And I constantly have told them this first week, with no matter how many questions you ask me, just keep asking me questions, but understand that yes, this is a problem. We will eventually fix it. It's just we're being patient.
Yeah. Yeah. Such a good, well balanced approach. Any other things from this first week that have maybe caught you off guard, or what's gone well that you're really happy about, or what are some things that you're like, oh, I didn't expect patients to ask this or for this to be an issue. What are things you expected and what are some things that you didn't expect?
Things I expected, patients having issues with the transition because they're used to the seller. I put a letter at the front desk with a picture of both of us. We sent out letters to all the patients. And I've just done my best to just give patients a good experience because I understand. One patient literally didn't even want to be seen by me, so I get it. And that's going to happen. You're going to lose patients. Totally normal. Oh, thing I didn't expect was the amount of things that you have to transfer over from the seller and how much of a headache it is sometimes because some people will be like, yeah, sure, you can just transfer it over to your name. And others are like, no, you have to make a whole new account with us. And like care credit. Oh man, I had the biggest frustration the first week because I was like, okay, right now, no third party financing, no care credit because the seller kind of got rid of it, but she kind of sometimes did it. So I just told them it, and it was still in her name. So I told the staff no care credit until we figured all the important stuff out. But they still ran two care credits and it went to the seller. So I manually had to refund those, delete her account off their computer so they couldn't even accidentally do it from hers. And then I signed up through there's just a lot of little things transferring over utilities and
Yeah.
she's paying crazy amounts for random stuff that she don't even care about. So all the little things to transfer over have been insane.
Yeah. Even with your mentality of changing nothing, there is still a lot of work to do, right? It's like, can you imagine you and the staff like having to change all of these things, and on top of that saying, oh, and we got to fix this, and we got to fix this, like do this, do this. So in essence, I mean, I think you have really kind of embodied a lot of what I think is a really good approach to this first week: listening, asking questions, working through some of the minutia and tasks as they come up. I really appreciate you being able to come and share your experience and kind of where you're at. I guess the last question, and then you can feel free to add anything else as well. After this first week, what is your level of confidence in like kind of zooming back out again? Okay, fire, like pushing yourself to get to ownership at an earlier pace than previously expected. Like now that you're a week in and you kind of see a little bit of, what it looks like and stuff like that, what is your level of confidence in your decision to move things up and then, the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, honestly, confidence is insanely high. Probably not healthily high. Just with how many things I saw this first week and learned, and I was like, I can fix that. I can turn this knob, pull this lever, and we can grow this. There was just so many little things. So confidence is really, really high with the practice, and I'm hoping with the fire goals, just consistently invest in every month. Hopefully, just growing that, moving more into investing. There's just so many little things where I'm like, we can do better.
Yeah. Well, that's excellent. I couldn't be more happy for you, the decisions that you've made, where you're at, how you continue to kind of push to find that balance between confidence and being open-minded. So I'm right there with you as far as like my mentality. I think, and I like how you said that, unhealthily high confidence. I'm okay with that for now. And if we need to center things back at some point, we can. But we got all the right things, and the momentum is definitely on your side. So thank you for taking the time. I think it will be fun, in the future, do some follow up episodes and just kind of talk about your progress and what's gone well. For anyone that is interested and like maybe wants to reach out and ask you more questions, are you comfortable with that? If so, like what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, probably shoot me an email. It is my first name, Raheel14, my last name, Haider at Gmail. It's probably the best way to reach me.
Okay.
But, anyone can reach out. I am not special. I am not smart. It's just taking action and constantly pursuing whatever I'm trying to pursue.
Excellent. Well, thank you. We'll be in touch. Thanks everyone for listening. I'm sure anyone listening got a lot of really good things out of today. So again, thanks for your time. If any of you are interested and want to hear more, I'll put Raheel's email in the show notes, and then you can always feel free to reach out to any of us, Derek, Steve, or Matt at thelifestylepractice.com. Take care, everyone.